feature that. There you go. I've spent the last winter telling people to turn on their air conditioners. So you might think I'm a bit strange. But actually, based on the work that the ATA had done and then some additional work we did at Melbourne Uni, we found some rather amazing economics that it can be a lot cheaper for people to heat their homes with their air conditioners than the traditional gas. And this is news to a lot of people. Like I said, I spent the whole last winter trying to tell people about it, but there are still so many people in the community that haven't heard this idea. And so really what I'd like to try and enlist with you all tonight is that you all become messengers and you're able to take action in your own homes, but also go out and talk to your friends and neighbors as we head into next winter, so they can get an idea about how they can save lots of money by using their air conditioners instead of gas. So we'll talk through all this and all the various issues. So I'm actually not going to talk about gas that much. I'm going to talk about alternatives to gas. In The Age the other day, there was an article where they said that Victorians could save $3 million a year if they put in more insulation. Fantastic, $3 million a year. We worked out that Victorians can save $250 million a year if they turned on air conditioners that they already have in their homes instead of gas. Huge numbers, huge numbers. So it's the biggest consumer win ever, and yet it's still pretty much a big secret. So the question I have for you all is, how can we get this information out to the community and let more people know? Now, one way we're doing it is with this Facebook group. So I don't know if you folks are on Facebook. I don't know if you hate Facebook, love Facebook. But this is a group that we started with over the last 18 months or whatever, My Efficient Electric Home. So it's a public group. Anybody can read what's going on. But if you want to post and get notifications and do all that other good stuff, feel free to join. We get a couple new members every day. We're up to 360 members now, I think. 2nd of August, we had 200 members. So it's just going huge. We got members from every state and territory in the country. And we even have people from South America that want to join. I don't know why. But so this is Facebook. This is one way to try to communicate with people, not only about air conditioners, but about everything having to do with home energy and that sort of thing. I know that the ATA's got forums, Whirlpool's got forums, and those forums, if you look at them, they're kind of like silent black and white movies compared to what you can do with a Facebook group. The Facebook groups let you interact and post things, post your own data, post links to other websites, etc., blah, blah, blah. And if you post something that's not very popular, doesn't matter. Eventually it goes down the bottom and you don't really see it. If you post something that's popular and that people like and they comment on and the discussion continues, it keeps coming up to the top. So some really good functionality with Facebook. It's an alternative technology for communicating. We are the Alternative Technology Association, so this is an alternative technology that you might consider. And in fact, if the ATA wanted to take over this Facebook group and run it, I'd be completely happy with that, because I'm not really sure how I'm going to extract myself from it. But so this is something we'll come back to in terms of communication. But let me go through the story first, and then we can. Oh, wait a minute. There is some news in Victoria. There's some news that's in the last month or so. Victoria's declared a moratorium on the unconventional gas extraction, and they will be introducing legislation to ban the unconventional gas extraction. And they've extended the moratorium on all sorts of onshore gas extraction until at least the 30th of June 2020. So that's a bit of news. And you might think, well, there you go, Victoria's done. We don't need to worry about this unconventional gas extraction, do we? I mean, that's the end of it, isn't it? Well, maybe not. Because the people that would like to go out and develop gas resources, they may come back with the idea that we got to develop gas, otherwise we're all going to freeze in the dark. And that's the beauty of these air conditioners, where you can heat your house for a third of the price of gas and save $250 million a year across the state. So this story really kind of falls apart. So you can see how these things are kind of linked, gas development or not, and what are the alternatives to gas. So we don't have to freeze in the dark, and neither do we have to go broke running gas heaters. So here's the story. Maybe lots of you already know about this. The big four in renewable energy in Australia is the hydroelectricity, the wind, the rooftop solar, and the air conditioners. Air conditioners? How can air conditioners have anything to do with renewable energy? Air conditioners are the devil. They blow out their electricity grid in the summertime, and they cost a lot of money to operate. Please explain, what do they have to do with renewable energy? Well, all those bad things about air conditioners are true in the summer. But in the winter, they can be the cheapest and the most environmentally friendly way to heat your home. How? Because they're heat pumps. In the winter, I grew up in the States, and in the 70s, they were talking about these things called heat pumps. And here in mainland Australia, most people still don't know what a heat pump is. Elsewhere, the term heat pump is quite common. In the US, they're called heat pumps. In the UK, they're called heat pumps. In New Zealand, they're called heat pumps. And in Tasmania, they're called heat pumps. But here, they're called reverse cycle air conditioners. So that's part of our problem, and part of the communication problem that we have. Here we have in New Zealand, they spent $129,000 to refurbish the toilet block and to replace the boiler with the heat pumps. I don't know how much they spent on the toilet block and how much they spent on the heat pumps. But these jurisdictions are across this. They understand their heat pumps. They harvest renewable ambient heat from outside your house. They don't generate heat so much as they shift it. They shift heat from outside your house into your house almost for free. That's why they're so cheap to operate. Here's how a heat pump operates. And we could go through the cycle. We could go through the compressor and the expansion valve and the evaporator and the condenser if we need to. So anyway, there's explanations are out there. But it's easier sometimes to say that when you say to people, do you know what a heat pump is? No. Do you own a heat pump? No. Do you own a fridge? Yes. A fridge is a heat pump. The heat pumps move heat in the opposite direction to natural flow. If you got water at the top of the hill, the water wants to flow down. So if you want to get it up to the top of the hill, what do? You get a water pump. Heat wants to flow into the refrigerator. If you don't want the heat in the refrigerator, rather you want the heat out of the refrigerator, you get a heat pump. And that's what it does with the magic of the refrigeration cycle. It takes the heat out of your food and puts it in your kitchen. It doesn't care if your kitchen's 35 degrees, it'll still keep your food cold at 4 degrees because it's got refrigerants there that will do the job and shift heat from your food out into the kitchen. In summertime, your air conditioner, same sort of thing. That's easy to envision. Just like a fridge, it's shifting heat from inside your house, outside your house. It doesn't matter if it's 42 degrees outside, it'll still work. It's shifting the heat from inside your house outside, pumping it outside. In the wintertime, so somebody came up with the idea you could take your air conditioner, run it around backwards, reverse cycle, and now we can capture heat from outside the house and pump it into the house. So it doesn't matter if outside it's 0 degrees, -5 degrees, -10 degrees, there's still heat in that air. Till we get to the point that the air outside is -250 degrees, absolute zero. There's still heat in the outside air. And the heat pump, if it's designed properly with the right refrigerants and can get out of the right temperatures, my heat pump's good to -20 degrees. They use them in Canada, they use them in America, they use them in Tasmania, they use them in New Zealand. So it can get that heat from the outside air, free renewable ambient heat, and bring it into the house.
Is there a topside level too? You say -20 is the bottom?
For moving heat this way,
You go the other way, yeah.
the warmer it is, the better.
For cooling inside.
Oh,
if it's-
for cooling?
Yeah, if it's
Okay, I'm
45
talking,
outside.
to not confuse people, I'll just talk about wind. You can also get a heat pump to heat water. So this is a reverse cycle air conditioner that heats water. It sucks heat out of the air, puts it into the tank. And the way that you can really get a feel for these things operating, if you have one of these, or somebody has one of these, or if you have a reverse cycle air conditioner, turn it on as a heater, and you'll go outside and the air around this thing will be freezing cold. Because what it's doing is it's sucking the heat out of the air. And as it gets rid of that air is freezing cold. So, you might be out here and it's 0 degrees outside. I got friends got one of these out past Ballarat and it gets bloody cold out there, but it works fine. But the air coming out of this thing can be below freezing. because well, it will be below freezing, because it's sucked the heat out of the air and put it into a hot water tank. Industrially, they're used quite a lot. Alan Pears, of course, who writes for Renew magazine, is always going on and on about industrial uses of heat pumps. So if you've got a dairy, you've got food processing, you've got lots of industrial applications where you need heat, but it doesn't have to be that hot. You don't need to burn gas to do it. You can use a heat pump and the refrigerant cycle to get to those temperatures that you need. But what's it got to do with renewable energy? This graphic is key. So what we're trying to show here is that with this heat pump hot water heater, you do have to buy one part of electricity, but with that, you can get 4.5 parts of hot water. Where'd the other 3.5 parts of heat come from? It's the free renewable ambient heat that gets sucked into the device and heats your water. So it can be confusing because people think of these as electric heaters. Well, they do use some electricity to run the compressor, but my gas heater, my ducted gas also uses electricity to run a blower. Is it an electric heater? So really, it's a heat pump. Most of the energy is coming out of the air for free. It does use electricity to run the compressor. With this particular device here, 1 part of electricity produces 6 parts of space heating, and so 5 parts of free renewable heat go in here. And this is why this is such a game changer. This is why it can be so cheap and even cheaper than gas to operate. So this particular unit here, this is the Daikin 7-star air conditioner, and in Renew 133, I wrote an article that's published in there and talks about our own situation with using the air conditioner in our own house. And what I worked out was that we could heat our house for about 1/3. So we had been spending about $500 a year on the gas energy for the old ducted gas system, my wife and myself, and others that might visit the house from time to time, the old weatherboard down in Sandringham. And now that $500 bill's gone down to $150 of electricity using this air conditioner. So we now spend so little on heating this house, I can't justify any more double glazed windows. I can't justify more insulation. I'm really annoyed because I wanted to keep doing those things, but I hardly spend anything on heat anymore. So this is a real game changer. I mean, people talk about insulation and all that stuff is still good, but more and more people are buying air conditioners because the summers are getting hotter and we do like to be able to sleep and get through those hot periods. So if you're buying an air conditioner, don't feel guilty. Get a good one, get the best star rating one you can afford, and figure out how you're going to use it for 120 days in the wintertime as a heater. You might use it for 10 days in the summer as a cooler, that's why you bought it. Turns out you'll use it for 120 days in the wintertime to heat your house for less money. So it's really changing the way we think about these things. I was saying before, in New Zealand, they have reverse cycle air conditioners, but you more often find them mounted down near the floor because they realize they will use them a lot more for heating than they'll ever need to use them for cooling. Just because it's mounted down near the floor, you can still get cold air to come out of it in the summer, but for 100 and some days a year, you're using it as a heater in the wintertime.
Are they a different design?
I don't know how they might configure the fans and everything to move the air around the room. I'll talk about that a bit more. That there's certainly a lot of brain power been going into how you design these things and try to eliminate all the things that people don't like about reverse cycle air conditioners, which I'll talk about. But in terms of the refrigerants and the temperature ratings, that's the other parameters you have to look at. At Melbourne Uni, we worked out that in 2014, this is how much electricity was harvested by rooftop solar panels. This is how much energy was harvested by reverse cycle air conditioners.
That's the ambient.
That's the free, renewable, ambient heat. Yeah, it's an apple and an orange. This is an electricity orange. This is a renewable ambient heat apple.
Is that based
But when you
on?
do it in kilowatt hours or megajoules, turns out more renewable energy is harvested by reverse cycle air conditioners than the solar panels. Of course, every year there's more people putting up solar panels, but every year there's more people buying air conditioners, and every year there's more people learning that they should use their air conditioner in the wintertime.
So is that based on people actually using those air conditioners now?
It was based
In
on some ABS
2014.
statistics, and yes, this was based on people who already are using them, because the ABS published statistics which said, what do you have in your house and what do you use? So from that, plus I've done home energy consultations in about 400 homes in Melbourne, and so I have a bit of a feel for what people know and don't know. So a few little guesstimates come up with this number, combination of my experience plus the ABS statistics as to what's actually out in people's homes. But there's no doubt there's a lot more reverse cycle air conditioners in people's homes than they actually use in the wintertime.
Excuse me, I don't understand how the energy from the using reverse cycle air conditioner is reusable, renewable. How do
Right, so that's the key thing. So let's see if we can get there. If you go, on a hot day, if you go turn your air conditioner on and stand near this thing, it's going to be hot air coming out. Has everybody done that? Do it the next time you have the opportunity, a hot day, turn your air conditioner on as a cooler. You'll go out and you'll feel the hot air. That's the heat being transferred from your house outside. So you're happy with that. Your house is cooler. It's moved the air out. Yes, you used a bit of electricity to run the compressor. Now, if you turn it around and use it as a heater, like tomorrow morning is going to be pretty cold. So if you got one of these things, if you've never used the heat button, go find the heat button, turn it on, walk outside, and the air coming out of this thing will be freezing cold. And the reason that air is freezing cold is because the air has been removed from it and it's gone into your house. The way it works get a little bit lost. But the refrigerant is going around and around in this cycle here. And with the compressor and the expansion valve, et cetera, the refrigerant gets really cold. So it might get to 10 below zero. And because it's so cold, it can suck heat out of the outside air, even if tomorrow morning it's only 5 degrees. So that refrigerant is so cold, it can capture that heat. But then it goes through the cycle, through the compressor, et cetera, and it gets hot. The refrigerant gets hot. So this is cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold, hot. The refrigerant gets hot, and then that's when, that's when you feel the hot air coming out of this thing. So this is an infrared image of the air conditioner being used as a heater, and you can see there's temperatures of above 40 degrees coming out of this thing, even though outside it might only be 0. But because the refrigerant is operating between -10 and 55 or 60, it's able to give you those temperatures that you need. So it's a fridge working in reverse. Yeah. But that's a key point. That's the problem we have with the communication.
But surely the solar power panels that you put on, or if we talk about photovoltaic cells,
Yeah,
well, that can be used in all other areas of the house.
sure.
But this is only one sort of heat, and
Yeah.
the heat in summer that comes out of the building, wouldn't that just, if more people got air conditioners, it heats up the outside wall?
What I'm talking about is using these in the winter. These will actually cool the air outside your house in the winter
But it's
because
probably
it's
already-
stolen that heat
Yeah,
and it's put it in your house.
yeah.
So you're right, solar panels are great. I'm not saying solar panels are bad. Solar panels generate electricity. Electricity is good for a lot of things. This generates heat, which is also useful.
What he's saying here, this is called a coefficient of performance. So you put 1 kilowatt in, you get 6 kilowatts out in heating.
Right.
And that's the leverage. It's like a seesaw effect, and that's basically what that is. So you put 1 kilowatt in, and you get 6 kilowatts of heat. And that's the ratio compared to what you do in terms of the heating. That's where you're getting these gains being made.
Right.
Yeah?
That makes all adds up, thank you.
Whereas if you use a radiator, you put 1 kilowatt in
Well, I can
and you
come to
get
that.
1 kilowatt.
I'll come to that, and that's the next thing. But Peter.
I have great empathy with this
Yes.
lady here, because the first time I heard this, I thought, no, come on, you're putting up all the tradition. There are a couple of points that I think need emphasising, because it really does work. The key point that you've already made, Tim, is that the energy, the heat is out there in the air. It's the ambient energy. The other thing is, that took me a long time to get my mind around, is that yes, you use power to drive this machine, but you're not using that power to create heat as you are in a conventional heater. You're using it to move heat. And it's a lot less, it takes a lot less power to move heat that already exists from here to here than it does to create it.
If it didn't do that,
You can now tell me to leave, sorry.
if it didn't do that, it wouldn't bother me.
I'll explain it more later.
Because, let me just hit this point. Because these things use electricity, people think of them as electric heaters. But like I said, my ducted gas uses electricity. Is this an electric heater? But these devices here, these are just your direct resistive electric heaters. And this is 1 for 1. So 1 unit of electricity, 1 unit of heat. Whereas these can be 1 unit of electricity and 6 units of heat. So everybody knows these are expensive. No kidding, because they cost 5 times as much to operate as one of these. And your gas heating might be somewhere in the middle, and we'll come to that. These are rated up to 7 stars. They don't have star ratings on these things because it's 1 for 1. You could say these are 100% efficient. 1%, 1 part electricity gives you 1 unit of heat, but that means that these are 600 or 700% efficient. And I actually did calculate the other day that if you want to give these a star rating, it'd be about -3. And we had a lady had a question.
Yeah, I'm making life difficult, I know, but I can see.
No, it's important.
I'm thinking the same way as the lady in front of me, and I get what you guys are saying as an answer. And then my brain's going, well, okay, you said it's the same as what a refrigerator does. And in most houses, the cost of running a fridge is about a quarter of the entire electricity of a house. So are you also going to tell us that a fridge is some form of renewable?
No, because the fridge is trying to keep things cool. In that situation, it's just a cost, and it's not harvesting any renewable ambient heat. When you use your air conditioner in the summer, it's like a fridge. No, it's not harvesting any renewable ambient heat. It's shifting heat from the food or from the house outside, but it's got nothing to do with renewable ambient heat. The beauty of these is in the wintertime, or when you're trying to heat things. And I guess one way maybe to explain this is, even the Australian government knows that these are renewable energy. Because if you buy a heat pump, you get renewable energy certificates for this. This is another form of solar hot water heating. And there's a case to be made that these are a lot more effective than, say, putting the solar hot water on your roof. But either way, either one of those, you get renewable energy certificates if you buy one of these things. Therefore, even the Australian government knows this is renewable energy, so that's saying something if they've worked it out. Now, in England, you get renewable energy certificates for buying an air conditioner, because they recognize in England mostly you're going to use it as a heater, and so that they have this thing called the renewable heat incentive. So in England you get renewable energy certificates for this. In Australia, that's not the case, because traditionally governments have not been keen on subsidizing the purchase of air conditioners. And so I've actually even been talking with the Victorian government, and you've got situations like low-income housing where, like, maybe the government's paying the better part of their energy bills, and they're on gas, and the government refuses to get them an air conditioner. Well, they're starting to realize they need to get these people air conditioners, otherwise they might die in the summer. And then the government's starting to twig, holy cow, if we get an efficient one, it's actually a cheaper form of heating, we can rip out the gas. So they've gotten that message now, as I'll show you in a minute too. So even the Victorian government's starting to work this out.
So just to get it clear then, in summer when you're using it as an air conditioner, you cannot claim it as renewable energy?
No.
It's a drain on the
No.
grid.
No, the only thing you could, no, yeah, exactly. I was gonna make a joke about you could hang your laundry out next to the unit and dry it with all that hot air coming out of there, which could be done. But in the wintertime, you can put your beer out next to the unit, and because of the cold air coming out of your device there, you can keep the beer cold.
I was just wondering, and maybe it's probably more for the benefit of people that aren't sure about that energy thing. Can you just pop back to that apple and orange graph? Because I wonder is it worth suggesting that the blue energy can be in heat form as well as electrical and potential, etc., etc. The blue energy is one type of energy, electrical energy, and the red one is heat energy.
Yep.
So technology and what we can do these days in the world, we can get more efficiency out of the heat one, but they're all energy. And in order to get, we can turn the blue energy, electrical energy into heat. But what you're saying, I think, I'm just trying to sort of recap if there's anyone who's not sort of sure, is they're all different forms of energy. And if they're up for grabs in the ambient air, then it's free, then it's renewable. Is that sort of a good way, a valid way of putting it?
Sorry, another question. Will you be talking about the refrigerants that are used? So
Yes, slightly.
there was one that was banned,
Like banned
wasn't
a long
there?
time ago.
Well, look, I think they're all bad except this one happens to use carbon dioxide. Well, even that's bad, isn't it? I mean, if you make the refrigerant, it's carbon dioxide, which is greenhouse gas, which has a global warming potential of 1. This unit here from Dakin, this has a butte refrigerant that's not as bad as some you used to have in terms of global warming potential. It has a global warming potential of only 632. So you don't want to leak that stuff, but there are refrigerants that are even worse, up into 1,000, 2,000, very high global warming potential. So you don't want this stuff to leak, and some refrigerants are better than others. Propane, for example, is another refrigerant. They call it a natural refrigerant because you get propane out of the ground, and it doesn't have the global warming potential. So, yeah, you don't want these refrigerants
It's
to
got
leak
some big
basically.
volumes though too, isn't it?
All right.
That's the problem.
So, like I said, -3 stars for these. So, now, one of the dramas, once people, if they possibly can get their head around the fact that it's cheaper to use the air conditioner and it's renewable energy, they still don't want to use it. In fact, I was presenting on this to the Victorian Upper House because there was the inquiry on the gas production. And David Davis, who was chairing the committee, said that he didn't care, he still wanted to use gas rather than air conditioning. And if I'd been a smart aleck, and I wasn't smart enough to think of this at the time anyway, I would have told him, David, yes, everybody loves a Ferrari, but it ain't necessarily the cheapest way to get to work. So the point is that these things are cheaper. But also, if you don't like the feel of them, some people say, oh, I don't like, they're up there and they blow hot air on me and I don't like that. Well, the technology has been moving along. The efficiency has improved a lot. It used to be there were only what you now these days call 1-star reverse cycle air conditioner available. Now it's up to 7 stars, and every star is about another 10 or 15% improvement on the performance. And so if you're wondering if you have a good one at home or not, the key word is the word inverter. So if you see the word inverter, that means that this uses this variable speed technology, and so that was a big efficiency improvement that came along with the inverter. But another people still don't like, the hot air blowing on you. So this one here, they've got this double flap system, so the air can actually go along the ceiling if you want it to. And this one's got an electric eye. You can program it to not blow air on me. And so it has the electric eye, can tell where you're at, and it'll blow the air over there. Or if you move over there, it'll blow the air over here. So they're really trying to think through what don't people like. The other thing people don't like is the hot air coming out of an air conditioner, or the hot air coming out of a ducted gas system. Well, this Dakin 7-star is the only unit on the market. It's a heater, it's a cooler, it's a dehumidifier, and it's also a humidifier. So it's the only residential application of a desiccant wheel. So a desiccant wheel is a way that this device can cheaply pull water out of the air, humidity, and then put it into the heat stream as it comes into your house. So it feels like a trip to Queensland. So you go in front of that thing, you don't feel like it's a trip to the Sahara, it's more a trip to Cairns, which can feel quite nice. And if you're into the technology of the heating and air conditioning, the theory or the fact is that you can feel more comfortable, if there's humidity in the air, you can feel more comfortable at a lower temperature than otherwise. So you might feel, well, I need it to be 24 degrees. Well, if there's more humidity in the air, you might be happy with it at 20 degrees. And so that, again, makes it very efficient. They work at low temperatures. You do need to keep the ice and snow off of them. If it gets covered with snow, it won't work because it's got to get that air through there so it can suck the air out of the heat out of that air. And they can frost up, and they may have to go through a defrost cycle. So particularly, and it's not at -5, it's more at like 2 degrees, and if it's humid. So I've noticed in some mornings in Melbourne, in those conditions, you turn on the air conditioner, and then it'll stop for a little bit, and it's like, what's it doing? Well, it's defrosting. And I ran around outside, and I could actually see a bit of frost on the unit. So it defrosts, and then it gets going again. And so it's at that regime of like +2 degrees, and if it's really humid, then it might go through that defrost cycle. But it gets itself going again. Kind of like a fridge, I suppose. But in terms of the temperatures themselves, I think mine's rated for -20 degrees. The hot water heater we saw before is rated to -10. So no problem in Australia. In fact, Australia is perfect for these things. The climate we have from one end to the other is perfect for heat pumps. Because the warmer it is, the easier it is. Like the other day, it was like 12 degrees outside. I turned the heater. It hardly has to work. It's only pumping from 12 degrees to 20. That's easy. Hardly used any energy at all. Pumping from 0 to 20 is harder, and it never has to pump from -10 to 20. So the hill that it has to pump the heat up, in a sense, is not that high in any climate zone in Australia. Okay, so hopefully we've talked a bit about the renewable energy, but you still have to buy that one part of electricity. So what if that comes from brown coal? Well, I'd say if you're that worried about it, buy green energy, or maybe you have your own solar panels to do that. The ATA did a study actually called "Are We Still Cooking the Planet with Gas?" And they worked out that because of the efficiency of these devices, that even if you're in Victoria using brown coal, you'll still be ahead compared to gas from the overall greenhouse equation. So that's good to hear. Now that depends very strongly on how much gas is leaked, because methane, natural gas, is a very powerful greenhouse gas itself, and if the gas producers leak much of that, well then it's worse than coal anyway. But the ATA made certain assumptions about that and found that in most situations you'd be better off from a greenhouse point of view with your air conditioner. But if you want to be completely short, buy green power. Okay, but what about money? Money. So in a lot of audiences, they don't care about the greenhouse business or any of that, or environmental, they just want to know about money. So we worked out, so Melbourne Energy Institute, University of Melbourne, where I work, and then we worked with the ATA, and we worked out that for a model case, a large Victorian home, and this was not using the 7-star air conditioner, I believe it was a 4-star air conditioner, so middle of the road, conservative assumptions, that sort of thing. A large house, Melbourne house, could save $658 a year. And the Age did run with that story a year ago. This is where you get this $250 million story if people who have air conditioners knew enough to use them in the wintertime. Our house, fairly close to this. I described how we went from $500 to $150, but we've got good insulation, some double glazed windows, so I guess we don't, and it's just the two of us mostly. So I guess we don't normally use as much heating energy as the average home, so we didn't save as much, but that was what the average numbers came out to. Canberra, $1,700 a year, because gas is like twice as expensive in Canberra. Why is anybody in Canberra using gas? But now, why is anybody in Victoria using gas? So what changed? Because gas was always seen as the cheapest way to go. Well, now we have these reverse cycle air conditioners, and they're not 1-star, they can be up to 7 stars these days. The price of gas is going up because we're exporting gas from Gladstone, Queensland to Asia. Gas is going all the way from the Bass Strait, Victoria, pipelines, all the way to Gladstone, Queensland, liquefied at -160 degrees, put on a boat and sent to Asia. So that's raised the prices of gas for all of us. You would have noticed that. And on the other hand, some cheap electricity deals can be found. So I recommend Power Shop, but you might be generating your own electricity with solar panels. I'll give you some numbers. But we weren't the only ones to say this. Matthew Wright was across it years ago with 6 air conditioners. And even the folks at the Grattan Institute, this was the Grattan Institute, came on board as well. How big is the prize? Well, there's probably 500,000 Victorian homes where they already have air conditioners that they're not using for heating. maybe a few less since I've been out telling everybody over the last week. I don't know. But that's the $250 million a year, biggest consumer win ever. All right. But what about you? What about, just maybe thinking of your individual situations? So it will depend on four things. What do you pay for gas? What do you pay for electricity? What's the efficiency of your reverse cycle air conditioner that you either already have or you're thinking of buying? And what's the efficiency of your gas system? So, number one, what do you pay for gas? Well, it can range from 0.013 to 0.022 per megajoule. If you look at your gas bill, it's very complicated. They have these different blocks of gas prices. The more you buy, the cheaper it gets. Get the gas. But the point I make is, if you're going to buy any gas at all, get the maximum discounts from your retailer. I think you can get discounts of like 24%. I go into a lot of people's homes. I look at their gas bills, their electric bills. I say, let's look at your energy bills. They bring out the bills, and then there's this big white space on the bill. And I say, you know what this white space is for? I said, if you're getting any discounts, this is where they list all the discounts. And people say, how do I get a discount? I say, you ring up, or switch to PowerShop. Well, PowerShop doesn't do gas, but that's the range of prices for gas, so it's a big range. Electricity, an even bigger range. So, if you're not getting any discounts, you might pay 38 cents per kilowatt hour. But if you have your own solar and you're putting it out onto the grid, you may only be getting 5 cents. And so there's a huge range for electricity, as you can see there. Again, get the maximum discounts from your electricity retailer. But if you understand how this works, you can see, again, why it may make a heck of a lot of sense to use this cheap electricity for heating water with a heat pump or for heating your house with a heat pump. How effective is your reverse cycle air conditioner? Again, 7 stars down to no stars. Again, there could be like a factor of 3 difference in the efficiency of the equipment that you're dealing with there. And one way to find out if you've got a unit at home, you can go look at this one here. It'll draw a kilowatt and produce 4 kilowatts of heating. So there you go. That's that coefficient of performance you were talking about before.
I was just going to ask.
This is the one part of electricity giving you 4 parts of heat.
The rating you just talked about there, does that correlate with the actual COP then, does it? The stars, the 7 stars, can you say 7 stars is 7 COP then in that case?
Oh, it's about 6, so it's not exactly right.
Yeah, okay.
And this,
so it's not quite
no stars, that's still a COP of
yeah.
1 or 2. I always forget my math.
I wasn't sure where they directly correlated to that.
Yeah, that's not exactly
No.
right. But there is, the government website, energyrating.gov.au, that if you're thinking of buying any equipment, television, refrigerator, washing machine, go to energyrating.gov.au, and they list all the equipment that's on the market in Australia and the star ratings, because you might not even know there's a 7-star unit available. I mean, you may not buy it, but you should at least know that it's available, because if you go to Harvey Norman or something, they got 1-star, 2-star, and you think, that's it, I'll get a 2-star, it's good. Well, it turns out it was a lot better, but they didn't sell it at Harvey Norman.
They've just changed the rating system, didn't they?
What's that?
They've just changed the rating system because they ran out of stars in the original one, didn't they? They've changed the rating system because the original stars don't go far enough now. They've had to actually change it again.
Yeah, they're starting to put, they need to put another layer across the top here for the 7
they've
stars.
had to sort of derated because they've ran out of stars, so they've actually then.
No, I think they put another crown on the top there to keep going with the 7 stars.
Yeah.
Like I say, every star is about another 10 or 15%
Yeah,
improvement.
it's not the original one's slightly different, yeah.
Energyrating.gov.au?
Yep. Gas. Now, interestingly, the gas ratings are not done by the government, they're done by the gas industry. But they're still a guide. And of course, if you have a gas unit, and you're always going to have a gas unit, you should get as efficient one as you can. But we've been talking about efficiencies of 200, 400, 700, 600% with the air conditioners. Your best possible gas system is going to probably be, if it's ducted gas, you're not going to get any higher than 70%. Because you set fire to the gas, a lot of the heat goes up the chimney, and then heat goes into the ducts, and you try to transfer that into your house. So you might be talking about numbers like 70%. In fact, some numbers might be down as low as 40%. So basically, you throw away half the gas as soon as you buy it. What's that?
What about condensing?
Well, that can be very efficient, fantastic technology. So you might get like 95% efficiency at the burner, but you still got to get that heat into the house. And so there can be losses along the ducts and that sort of thing. So if you have ducted heating, have a look at your ducts. If you haven't looked at your ducts for 30 years, you should probably have a look, because probably some animals got underneath there and ripped them to shreds, or some kid crawled under the house and smashed them. These folks, so their ducts were open, and it turns out they'd probably been that way for 20 years. In fact, the guy had upgraded his blower because he couldn't get his bedrooms warm. They didn't check his ducts. So the more he upgraded his blower, he was just blowing more hot air out underneath the house for 20 years. So, yeah. Right, now, the Victorian government, so I've presented to the Victorian government. I don't know if that had any impact, but it turns out they are improving their information for the consumer. So here we go, heating running costs. And they've just picked a set of parameters. And okay, you gotta do that, I guess, but actually I think I showed you there's a wide range of efficiencies and prices, et cetera. So, you know, your mileage will vary. But they picked a set of assumptions, and they list what those assumptions are. They did some calculations. For space heating, small room, what's the cheapest? Reverse cycle air conditioner. Medium room, what's the cheapest? Reverse cycle air conditioner. Large area, what's the cheapest? Reverse cycle air conditioner. So the Victorian government's come on board. Small house, what's the cheapest? Reverse cycle air conditioner. Medium house, what's the cheapest? Reverse cycle air conditioner. Large house, what's the cheapest? Reverse cycle air conditioner. So the Victorian government's come on board with that, which is great. Even now, the air conditioning companies are starting to twig and advertise that their devices can be competition for gas. So this was a billboard. I saw this outside the Tullering Airport in the middle of winter, and they're claiming a 27% savings versus gas with Dakin. So they're being quite conservative. You know, I would say they'd probably do a lot better than that, but they picked a set of parameters and came up with a number. But this is interesting because in the past, you know, they never marketed them for wintertime use. They only marketed them for summertime use. Right, so how to get these messages across to people can be tricky. There's a lot of numbers. So one thing that we've done, now most of this presentation is already on the ATA website and has been there for the last year or 6 months. And it's on a few other websites. If you've got access to any websites and you'd like to upload this presentation to get the word out there, that's fine, we can do that. But one of the things I added was just case studies. So I thought, how do we get the message out there? A lot of people be confused by the numbers. So maybe if they read a case study and they read about Gale, and they might say, well, gee, my home's like Gale's, so maybe my results would be like Gale's, or like Chloe's, or like Jillian's, or like Rick's, or like mine. So there's these various case studies out there. It's another way of trying to get the message across. So this is the article from Renew Magazine, where we're heating for about a third of the cost that we used to have. You can do the calculations. You can come up, you can do a spreadsheet. You just got to multiply the four numbers together, you know, your prices and your efficiencies. And I did build a little spreadsheet. It took about 10 minutes. I call it the heatulator, because the ATA has the tankulator and the sunulator, so I would like the ATA to publish the heatulator. I haven't done that yet, but I'd like them to do that. It's a simple calculation. It's the assumptions that are tricky. You know, how do you help people? You know, if the ATA were to publish this, well, they'd actually have to provide some help as to how you work out the efficiencies of this, that, and the other thing. So it's not that simple to publish a useful tool for people, but at the moment it doesn't exist. For any really old engineers out there, I built a nomogram. And all you got to do is you just draw straight lines on this. So like if I'm in somebody's house, and we can say, well, let's see, you spend about this for gas, and the efficiency might be that. You spend that for electricity, and your efficiency might be that. The lowest point on the graph is the winner. That's a nomograph, if anybody remembers those, back in the slide rule days. In New Zealand, they may have a better way of presenting it with these overlapping bar charts. So here we have like LPG, very costly. Electricity, just your straight resistive heaters. Firewood in New Zealand. Something called a night store, so this must be off-peak electricity in New Zealand. Gas, and then the heat pump. So again, you see in New Zealand, the heat pump can be the cheapest, but there's overlap on these things. I thought I'd do a little bit of retroactive work, and so I dug up all my old electricity bills and gas bills, and I said, gee, this is pretty cool that we're in a situation now where the heat pumps are so much cheaper. When did that happen? So we're here, with a very high coefficient of performance machine. And because it's lower than 1, this is very cheap heating here. But if we go back 10 years, it wasn't the case because the very high performance heat pumps weren't yet on the market and the prices in gas and electricity were different. So I went back through all my gas and electricity bills, got the old prices, put them in a spreadsheet here. And it turns out that even back in 2007, it was kind of break even between an air conditioner and gas. But then the price of electricity went up, and so heat pumps would lose. But then a better heat pump came on the market. But then the price of electricity kept going up, so gas was still the winner. But then a more efficient air conditioner came on the market. And then the price of electricity started to go down while the price of gas went up. And now we have even more effective ones. So this just gives you a bit of the timeline that, if you're thinking 10 years ago, were the heat pumps a lot better? No. But now they can be very much so. And then of course you can keep going, and you can make your home completely gas-free. So if you can heat your spaces with a heat pump, if you can heat your water with electricity, if you can do your cooking with an induction cooktop, then you can say goodbye to the gas bill. My son's house, he doesn't have any gas heating. He just bought a standard heat pump, and he just got a bill from AGL for gas. He paid 60 cents for gas and $48 for fixed charges. So the 60 cents of gas was the cooktop, and the $48 was just being connected. So he'll be looking at the induction cooktop and saving about $300 a year of fixed charges with the gas. At our house, we haven't quite done that yet. Got some issues with the sewer I need to deal with.
You don't pay gas charges if you have a gas bottle just for you?
Correct. You'll pay for renting the gas bottle.
Yeah.
It's a lot more.
So your gas bottle rent was kind of your fixed charge. But yeah, that's another thing you can do. So
I
like,
really like cooking with gas.
have you tried induction?
Yes. I haven't tried the very modern one where it instantly changes temperature when you adjust it. But I've certainly tried the induction that's my daughter's. It drives me battered.
So now
It's not consistent.
So now
they've got to chuck it out.
sometimes you can't. Sometimes when you're looking at an electric cooktop, you can't tell whether it's radiant or resistive or induction. So you're sure it's induction. Inductions are the ones
You
that.
said that. I don't know that. I always thought it was
So
induction.
there's the older style, they call them ceramic or whatever, but they get hot. You'll burn yourself if you touch them.
Yeah.
That's the old style of electric cooktop.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Whereas an induction cooktop doesn't get that hot. You practically put your hand on it. So that's the first thing to make sure you really did use induction.
No, it wasn't.
And then the other thing is, did it have a lot of controllability? I know that, like I bought a cheap $50 induction cooktop from Aldi. It's only got 6 settings, and it's not really good enough. So you need something that has a lot of
And
settings.
you have to have special saucepans too, don't you? So
Yeah, if
that's-
it's turn over your minds, if they don't, then they're not good. But yeah, so the induction can be just as controllable as gas, can be safer. I did set fire to my bathrobe with our gas heater once, so that's not really safe. But yeah, it does have the issues with the pot, and also as we were talking about before, if you run out and you want to get an induction cooktop, you might find the electrician wants to charge you a lot for an extra large line to service the cooktop. So these are issues. And all these things we're talking about, we have debated them endlessly on Facebook. Every question that's come up tonight, we've debated endlessly on Facebook over the last 15 months. And so you go to Facebook, you type induction cooktop, and you can see everything we've talked about induction cooktops. And so all the questions have been asked, and all the answers have been provided, but I haven't memorized it all. I've learned a lot, but I haven't memorized it all.
I would present myself as an example.
Hey, are you?
Stephen.
You're Stephen.
Yeah, good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
So
Facebook friend.
So probably by the end of October or maybe November, depending on timing, we'll be switching our gas off completely and setting the meter back. We got rid of, or we still have the brightest buffalo, but our house allows us to put an aircon quite centrally, physically in the house, so it kind of blows air down the corridor. Maybe that's. I will probably calculate when we actually switch the gas off, but I'm guessing it's maybe from $500 worth of gas energy to 100 or almost $100 of heat pump energy. Our water heater, 6 o'clock tomorrow, I'll be picking up a heat pump hot water to bring it in, getting ready for the plumber to do that next week. And induction cooking, we've got an IKEA one. And even my mother-in-law, she's an awesome home chef, and she's very old school. And she says, oh, what's this fancy high-tech spaceship business? and I showed her just a litre of water, and I just boiled it. And she could just see how quick, and it took only about 10 more seconds than the kettle. It's just from what I've been learning. Like, I've been chatting to Tim and a lot of other people, and I think is that Richard?
That's Richard.
That's
Yep.
Richard. I think he's been sharing some of his story.
Yep.
Some of it's really hard. There was a lot of education and learning, and I'm a bit of a a nerd, so I'll try to eat that stuff up. But it was very hard to understand. In our situation, it was an economically driven decision rather than an environmentally. I'd like to be able to afford to be more environmentally motivated, but at least we're getting the same consequences. And I think it takes a while to sort of get your head around the stuff, but it's I definitely would endorse both the Facebook page and a lot of what Tim's saying. And we sort of, we felt we're taking some risks, making some substantial capital expenses on some of this equipment, but now we've had a winter, so we've actually got some comparative bills, and we're really, the numbers are showing pretty nicely.
Great.
Yeah. What a lot of this stuff doesn't show is the capital expenses.
Oh,
I thought about.
of course.
Because you say your son has a sander and
Yes.
heat pump. I've been looking at one of them.
$4,000 or so.
$4,500.
Are you getting the sand?
To get
Yeah, even
$4,500
with-
just to get one of them.
Yeah.
You can get, your normal one. We've got currently a gas.
Bloody easy, you already have it.
Yes.
Or you're thinking of buying it for the summer where you have not done a payback calculation. You just want to be able to sleep when it's 29 degrees outside. And then you get the heating for free. In terms of capital costs.
Even if there's $2,000 difference,
Mm.
water is a big part of the energy bill. I mean, the payback period is not going to be 20 years. It's going to be probably.
Yeah, the ATA in that report, the other report, which is called "Are We Still Cooking with Gas?" did some calculations based on new equipment. So you might get some guidance there in terms of the hot water. I really want to do the hot water again for myself, sort of have a look at it to work out, the economics. But certainly there is high capital cost for induction cooktops, for the best heat pumps,
It's
for
the
the
whole,
best air
it's a
conditioners.
whole of life costing you got to look at.
Yeah.
When you overseas, they actually look at the whole of life costing, and in Australia, we always focus on capital costing and not OPEXing. We always talk CapExing, we very rarely talk about OPEXing. If you take the whole equation, it's usually a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about safety issues of gas heaters. You're meant to have your gas heaters looked at every 2 years. That's a cost, but then people don't do it. So, should you buy a carbon monoxide monitor? Those sorts of questions. That.
Yeah. Is there a problem of going off gas, like asking the gas company to come and disconnect? And there is that talk of charging you anyway because the gas comes past.
Yeah, we've discussed it on the Facebook group.
Yeah.
And I think in some jurisdictions, I think it was out in Western Australia, the guy got quite a lot of gumph, but others in Victoria seem to have disconnected with no problem at all.
No problem.
If you don't have an account, how can they charge you?
Richard had a great story. So Richard, who contributes to Renew Magazine, because he contributed to Renew Magazine, he had the plumbing police show up. Right, so they came to his house and they read about what he was doing, so they wanted to have a look at it. And he had water tanks and he had the water pump, and the water pump was too close to the gas meter. So he said, "Get rid of the gas meter."
Wow.
Yeah.
So they'd actually pull off the gas meter, I guess. But the question, what I was going to comment on was, I put a lot of induction heating and heat pump in my house, and the electrician said, "Oh, we'll have to upgrade the supply," which was 50 amp to 80 amp,
Yeah.
and this is going to take a long time.
Yeah.
Now this is absolute crap.
Mhm.
If you do your calculations,
Mhm.
you're saying, "Oh, well, the heat pump, if it's running at 4 a.m. in the morning on a very cold night, it's going to draw a lot of power."
Not much. Not that
Yeah,
much.
if you run into
It-
issues with
in the worst-
electricians, I'd say get on the Facebook group, ask your questions or see what's already been asked, and maybe we can find electricians who do the right thing.
But the point is that it's just their advice. You just say, no, I don't need an ATM supply. If we put everything on at once and the breaker goes, we'll reset the breaker.
That's right, yeah.
And he said, okay,
Right, it's just on your back, not mine, I'll do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
end of story.
Yeah, and it's the same way with like buying air conditioners. And I talk about it in here, the dark art of sizing an air conditioner. You know, we got quotes from Daikin for air conditioners, and they wanted to sell us 15 kilowatts of cooling. Well, we ended up being perfectly happy with 6.
Yeah.
So they want to sell you more. A, they make more money, but also you're never going to ring up and complain that it's too small. And actually, they give you a lot more capacity than you need. It'll actually be quite efficient because you'll hardly ever run it very hard. It's like buying the Ferrari and only ever going 30 kilometers down the road. But
If we wanted to get rid of gas, how would we?
how old is the system? How old is the solar hot water system?
8 years.
Pardon me?
8 years.
8 years? Yeah, and is it evacuated tube or the flat panel?
It's a
Unfortunately,
stainless
no, it's
steel.
panels.
Yeah, so one thing to do is to try to work out how much gas it is using. Well, first off, get a really good shower head. I've been in people's homes where they got shower heads that, take 30 liters a minute.
We've got a good shower head.
Yeah,
I
there's
don't think
shower
we
heads
use
available
much.
that
We don't
use-
use much gas because in
Right.
winter, we've got the wood stove going and that's got
Yeah.
a wet back that
Yeah,
is a booster for the hot water.
yeah.
But it'd be a bit risky to have no booster whatsoever just in case.
Yeah, so you've got capital commitment in gas, like I've got a fancy gas log fireplace, makes it hard to get off gas. Yeah.
Can you replace that booster with a solar heat pump?
Actually, well, yes, you can. That's what Richard has.
In combination with a solar hot water?
He does, but it's kind of overkill. You might just, if you're not using a lot of hot water, you might just use direct resistive. Do you have solar panels as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so we've gotten to the point where we really need to discuss this on Facebook. But possibly, yeah, if you want to get off gas, you could probably just go with direct resistive electric boosting for your solar, and either do that in the middle of do that in the middle of the night on the lower tariffs, or do it in the middle of the day on your solar, and that might get you off gas. Yeah, maybe that's not. I'd say going to the heat pump's probably overkill, particularly if you're not using a lot of hot water. So it's you basically practically have like a $5,000 solar hot water system, then you buy $5,000, $4,000 heat pump as well.
There was an interesting product at the All Energy Australia Expo. It's called Power Diverter, but it took any excess power
Yeah.
that your PV system was generating over and above what you were using in the house, and it would divert it to the hot water, resistive hot water heater element. And the neat thing about it is that it would not push more power into the water heater than was available as excess from the solar. So you're not, it's got that safety in there.
Yep.
That would be a very good way
Yeah,
of
we-
dealing with the companies, certainly in summer.
Yeah, we went on about that for a couple of days on Facebook earlier this week.
We wouldn't do that.
And that might be a topic for another discussion
Yeah.
sometime next year.
Yeah, because I'm not even up on all that technology and those stuff, so yeah, you have to learn more.
But we wouldn't do that while they're still getting 60 cents.
Aha, that's the other
Feed-in
thing.
tariff.
That's the other
Put it
thing.
in at the right time.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, it depends what's driving you.
Just proactive
I've got
us.
an issue.
That's the thing, it's
My
unbelievable.
hot water system is 13 years old, it's a gas one. It's due for replacement fairly soon. I've got about that amount of time out of the previous 2 units. The last one cost me just on $1,000 to replace. I guess now they've gone up a bit. But I've got friends who can do it for me fairly cheaply.
So it's
I'm
a big
looking-
gas storage unit?
Yeah, it's typical, it's a smaller 135 litre.
Hmm.
So I imagine, I haven't got any prices lately, but I imagine it'll be around $1,500, maybe a bit less.
Mhm.
Whereas the quote I got recently
Mhm.
for a Sandon was $4,500.
Yeah.
We've gotten about 13, 14 years
Yeah.
out of each of those.
Yeah.
There's very little moving parts in the gas one. There's only a thermostat big deal. I'd recover the thermostats out each one, as a spare.
Yep.
You only got a burner, you've got
Yep.
more moving parts, things to go wrong with the other one.
Sure.
You got the extra cost. Now, I don't use much hot water. My gas hot water bill is, for the year, is only several $100, not much. So it's hard to justify. I'd love to get a heat pump.
Yep.
It's hard to justify. That's my dilemma at the moment, but I'll need one fairly soon, so I
Yeah.
Oh,
And
well,
again-
we should get together and buy a bulk buy.
Bulk buy heat pump, well, sure, great idea.
But
Great
it's
idea.
hard that, when it's nearly 4 times the price and there's
Yeah.
more moving parts, you can have more maintenance, more,
Yeah.
eventually your pump's gonna go after 8 or 10 years, you're gonna get a new pump
Yeah.
put on it,
Yep,
a lot more running costs.
yep. And, so do you have solar panels?
Not at the moment,
Yeah.
coming soon,
Well, again, you may look at just resistive hot water. If you wanna get off gas.
yeah. 1,000.
Yeah, and back on the heating thing, I mean, some people say, oh, I just wanna use the gas. And I say, or, we don't have our air conditioners in the right places in the house. And I say things, well, perhaps you can base load with the air conditioner. So in other words, get the air conditioner going, and if you need to top up a bit, with gas on the coldest days. And so maybe if you can find that you're using the air conditioners exclusively in the autumn and in the spring, but maybe in the middle of winter you need to turn the gas on a bit. So again, that helps to reduce your gas use even if you're not getting off of it altogether. And of course with water use, I say get a great shower head that might use as little as 5 liters a minute, and how much hot water you're really using anyway. Yeah, my Aquamilk's gas is still cooking along, although the insulation seems to have degraded because it's got hot. I can tell there's heat escaping out the side of the Aquamilk's. But we'll get a salmon at some point.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make the point, it isn't quite a large amount of money to invest,
Absolutely.
and it's,
Totally.
When you're hydronic heating and heat pumps,
Yeah.
there's quite a large cost outlay with a heat pump to replace a gas boiler.
Yeah.
But the
And
COP,
very limited equipment on the market as well.
and the COP of them is not much well really good down at 5 degrees C. So you may not struggle to get a good return out of it.
Yeah, interestingly, though, Dakin actually produces a reverse cycle air conditioner that looks like a hydronic panel. So that might work for some folks if they're interested in cooling and heating. And then it produces a radiant type of heat like a hydronic panel, as opposed to just blowing the hot air business. So
But it's not actually hydronic though, is it?
no, it's a heat
not
pump.
additionally transferred.
It's a normal split system.
Yeah.
It's a normal
No,
split system.
yeah, just question.
Yeah, sure, there's limitations in terms of what's available on the market here and the cost involved and,
Certainly don't make a big one, they only make a small one big enough for hot water service. This, they don't make up, there was one taken in North America, which was a larger sandy unit, but it's never come to Australia.
right. But there's a couple other makers that have got some heat pumps for hydronic, that we've turned up on the Facebook site there, so.
This be good, the sand and that?
Good as the sanded, I don't know, you have to check it out, yeah, don't know. I don't think it's carbon dioxide refrigerant.
No.
But it's a cascaded system, so it could actually be quite good, more expensive, if you've got like 2 of everything. But a cascaded system actually could have a quite high COP, so that'd be something to check out.
Which manufacturer don't
It's on Facebook. I can't remember.
we? Okay, I'll have a look at it.
They just get in there and just type in hydronic in the search field, boom, you'll see everything we've talked about hydronic heating for the last 15 months.
This is a question more about.
Down at Mornington, they've got like a eco building or something, and they put one of those in there, so it's a big heat pump running their hydronic system, in-floor heating.
This is the council at Mornington, Melbourne?
Something like that, yeah, guy down there posted it.
So you were saying in the first part of your presentation about how there's a very slow education process. Isn't gas cheaper? And all those sorts of things that our parents have taught us, and we assume it's true.
Yeah.
I guess my question to you is, how many have you tried to go to like architects and draftspeople and builders? Because this gentleman here made a very good point about the whole life cycle of these machines and looking at it in terms of, because the capex is massive, you can't ignore that. But if you are building a house, there's an enormous amount of capex. So if you make those decisions then, that's the best time to do it. And draftspeople, architects and builders are very heavily involved in that part of it. What happens when you go to them? Do they hear you? Or do they
Right,
just
no, I haven't presented to the architects or the builders or whatever. Yeah, somebody should do that.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm only one person, and so we need
They're-
lots of other
they're-
recruits.
Well, they're driven by the market, and it's what the market sometimes tells them, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Everyone likes to have
but
fancy
it would,
stuff in there.
Well,
it would certainly.
I'm in the business as well, like, too, and it's, you go to a real estate agent and you just ask them, does it value add to have a solar on? And they look at you and go, what? Solar panel? So that's what I'm saying, they have a clientele, they have that information, they're well aware of these things, but if the clients don't want that.
Yeah, there was in the domain section of the Herald, or whatever, Herald Sun on the weekend, whatever they call it, like Daniel King and Maurice and then Benet were quoted in there. And Maurice was quoted as saying, if it comes down to a more efficient heating system or the marble benchtops,
Yeah, I know.
go for the marble
I
benchtops.
get it all the time.
But you're right, that would be really good to have that discussion. I haven't personally had it, whether I'll ever have it in the future or not. How long will I keep beating this? Myself, I'm
yeah,
not
just
sure.
wondering whether-
It could be something for the
Most
ATA
of them are. I mean, they have
to
lots of
take it up.
forums. They constantly in their personal development or continuing professional development do a lot of training around that. So they are aware, architects and designers and those things. What I'm saying is that the clients, it needs to come, the clients can ask the architects to do that, and then they will do that. Because to transact, you need to do what the clients want.
I guess it's more like, as an expert in the field, your role is partly to educate the clientele. But yeah, if they don't want to hear it, then I was just curious to see.
Yeah, I haven't had many
Interested in those
discussions.
I do solar. I'm an engineer. I do business in solar. I've had a person where I said, "I'll do $10,000 for your home." I said, "No, sorry, we can't. We've got to get a $50,000 kitchen in first, and then we'll consider solar." That's 5 years ago. That's the discussion you actually have, and have to sell it. There's a lawyer, people that understand it, they're agreeing. You can do as much as you can, but it depends on where they want to put their money into those. That's it.
Sure. Yeah. But down here's one here. Yeah.
I've got a living area that's really it's hardly got any space suitable for an air conditioner up at the sort of ceiling level.
Yeah.
A lot of it's cathedral ceilings and
Yeah.
what have you. I've currently got a 40-year-old air conditioner.
You've got a what?
40-year-old,
Yeah.
almost 40-year-old air conditioner that's in the wall under a high window.
Yeah.
And it's in a place which is quite a good, for me, quite a good place for it to be. About head height.
Mm-hmm.
When I talk to the guys, no, you can't put one there. You know, the wall ones have to be on the floor, according to a guy I was talking to at the weekend. This is a Dakin guy.
So sorry, you've got an air conditioner up there,
I've got an old 40-year-old air conditioner at
and
head
you're
height.
thinking of getting a new
One
air
of those in
conditioner.
the wall ones that sticks out, you know?
Yeah. So right. So it's not a split system.
It's not a split system and it's not.
Right,
it
so
hasn't
you
got
take
a
that
big-
out.
It hasn't got a big profile.
Yeah.
It's not a good place to stick something that's this wide, like the normal, split system outlets are.
So
It's
sorry,
not-
you
it's
spoke.
under the window.
You spoke to Dakin and they had a problem. I would say
No, I was
get
wondering,
another
what
quote.
about
Talk to
one of their wall panel things, Oh, they've got to be on the floor, he says.
But if you're happy with your air conditioner up there,
Well, I don't want to replace the.
and you just want to get a new one,
I want to get a new one because it's.
well then it should be able to go right there.
Yeah. They all think it's a terrible place, and I have no argument.
Matthew Wright, he came to our place.
Yeah.
Matthew Wright came to our place to tell us we had to put our take on things, and then he got the take on people to do it.
Right. Is it-
Take a photo, put it up on Facebook,
Yeah.
say, what's wrong with this location?
Flies at your face, fair enough, I quite like that, particularly when it's cooling, and I want the heat down lower. I hate heat up there, I want it down here.
Hand it back.
Anyway.
Did you buy an air conditioner?
I've been procrastinating, but I will get on with it
All right.
within the next 20 years.
Okay, good.
Just a couple of things that have slipped to mind in the conversation really quickly. Just on the matter of galvanising the public a bit more. I'm a resident of an inner city suburb. Gas people recently went around to upgrade the gas mains, and they told a lot of people they had to pay X amount to get their lines fixed because they were leaking or whatever.
Yeah, that
or
happens,
whatever.
yeah.
And that's the perfect time to get people because no one wants to pay money.
Yeah.
So that's your sort of opportunity cost there. And that's why I disconnected the gas and have since been running resistive heaters because I'm procrastinating on getting on with it. But anyway, anyway, quickly, on the matter of...
Just on that issue, yeah, if the gas company is going to be upgrading the lines, and what they do is they generally shove a plastic pipe down the old steel lines, and so that's to reduce leaks, which is great, because generally you run around, you smell gas everywhere, and so they're trying to get on top of that. But what they will do is they'll send you a letter, they'll say, look, when we're done with all this, we're going to do a pressure test, and if we find leaks on your side, well, you're going to have to get that fixed. So yeah, I was kind of shaking in my boots at one point when they were doing that, but nothing happened, so. Next point.
Yeah, and then you mentioned before about the Dyton Marusarara.
Which the ATA is giving away as their prize for new members or members that are signing up.
Hard to get in there.
Wow. Just with that particular model, is that less inclined to blow in your face than because the blowing?
That's exactly right. You tell it, don't blow in my face, it won't blow in your face.
Right. So
it has this electric eye, it knows where you're at, which is a bit scary.
Wow, because my only issue with the air cons, and you mentioned hydronics before for their various advantages and whatever. Because my only issue with the air cons is the whole blowing and the noise factor.
Mm-hmm.
I went to stay at someone's luxury house the other day. I was house sitting in someone's. It's good to. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And I was staying in this luxury house for a while they were on holidays, and they had hydronic heating, and I was slightly appalled because I knew all this about air conditioning things, much better, etc. But on the other hand, I couldn't help but notice that it was lovely, quiet heat. You know, it wasn't this sort of blowing noise.
Yeah, but it won't cool you on a 40-degree day.
But if the Dyton Marusarara isn't as bad as that, isn't as noisy.
Oh, to low fan speed, it's very quiet.
Yeah.
What I find a lot of people do, what we do, what a lot of people on Facebook do is, you know, you're not heating the house constantly.
Yeah.
You know, you shut the heat off at night, you shut the heat off in the middle of the day, you come home, then you turn it on high fan speed to get some heat into the place. That's noisy, or noisier. But once you got the place heated up and you put it on low fan speed, you just hardly hear it. Nice. And also that humid heat, you may want that blowing on because it's like a trip to Queensland.
Yeah, we put our the Dicon on from 4 a.m. to 7,
Yep.
which is on the off-peak.
Yep.
And that warms the house up for the day.
Yeah, when you wake up, it's
we've
nice
got a
and warm.
late start house.
Yep.
Because we've got a double brick house and we insulated the outside.
Yep.
So we sort of
Yep. Yeah, and there's the Wi-Fi that you can get with these things now, so you can. We need to put it on a timer, but if you don't want to put it on a timer, you can use your phone when you're driving home and say, turn on the air conditioner, so.
But we find that, you know, put that on from 4 in the morning
Yeah.
to 7, and you get a cheaper rate, and 2,
Yeah.
it warms your house up, and then you get the natural heat for the day.
Yep. How are we doing on time? I got no idea.
Yeah, keep going.
Keep going.
Have you got some more slides? Or?
I don't know that I got more slides. Oh, here's some references. Richard presented on energy freedom before. The ATA's got their green home heating guide. These things can be a bit out of date if they're not giving you the latest and greatest, but anyway, there are some references there. And there's a whole bunch of other, like I say, most of this presentation is already on the ATA website, so there's a lot of extra reading here you can get into. I've published a lot of articles on the conversation in other places. If you just Google my name, you'll find a lot of stories about things. So perhaps you will never look at an air conditioner. Any more questions? Yep, we still got some questions coming.
I've got a wall furnace and it doesn't have the same heat losses as what you have in the ducted setting.
Correct.
Yeah. They're reasonably efficient.
Yep.
They've got a heat exchanger in them, so
Yep.
again, a lot of the heat goes up the chimney anyway. But how efficient are they?
Yeah,
in
more.
percentage terms.
Yeah, you might get a 70 or 80% number out of something like that. It's not a condensing type. Right.
No.
Yeah, so you might get a 70 or 80% out of that.
Yeah, right. not too
So you can
bad.
put that in to heat you later and figure out the economics.
I've been house sitting for a couple of years while I'm planning my own house, and one thing I've experienced is that there's a lot of noise with reverse cycles and air conditioners and things, not just for the people in the house when it clunks and turns on and turns itself off, but also for the neighbours. And I'm wondering if there's research being done in this area reducing that noise factor.
Yeah. If you're buying something, check the specifications as to how noisy it might be outside. Try to go someplace where somebody's got one set up that you can actually play with it, put it up to top span speed, and see how noisy you think it is inside.
It's
I know
not so
that
much.
again.
It's not so much when it's actually running. It's when it turns itself on and off. I think these things sometimes make an awful lot of noise. Or whether
I haven't heard.
depends what
haven't
they
heard
are
that.
charging. I
That's
don't
because of
know.
the ramp up, ramp down on that, and you're knocking clutches and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's causing all the problem, but there's certainly do with
It's
heat
ramp up,
difference.
ramp down.
I'll say this.
It's-
I'll say this. This is a evaporative cooling type.
Yeah.
They're bloody noisy. I mean, my neighbor, we go out in our backyard, 3 houses away, all summer long, I get to listen to his evaporative
Well, I listen to
cooler.
the heaters and the coolers because, of course, I've been living in places all over Victoria.
Pretty noisy.
It's a lot of noise.
Well, they rely on that.
Other questions?
Evaporative cooler's not much good where there's high humidity anyway, is there? Is that right? Am I right?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Yes, it uses the principle of humidification to cause the cooling, and in some climates you wouldn't have them at all. In Victoria, they generally do provide some cooling, although there might be particular humid days, which I think we tend to get more at the very beginning of summer. But, I've had some people complain about that, but the thing about evaporative cooler is it can't heat your house in the wintertime. So again, really, these made sense at the time, and they're still putting them in new houses, but the efficiency of the refrigerative type has just improved so much. I mean, people used to go for these because they were cheaper, but actually, these come with a big fan. The amount of cooling I could get out of an efficient refrigerative air conditioner from the amount of energy they're using there just to run that fan is quite significant. Same way with my ducted gas, it's got a 300-watt blower. If I run my Dakin on 300 watts, I'm getting a lot of heat. And that's even before turning the gas on. So these things were traditionally put in because they were thought to be a cheaper way to go in terms of the operating costs. They're expensive to install because you got all the ductwork going everywhere. And the other thing about evaporative, they say, is that they cost more to operate in the wintertime than in the summer. And the reason is because you poked all these holes through your ceiling, and nobody goes around and closes up the vents, and so they suck a lot of heat out of the house in the wintertime. So the evaporative can cost you more in winter than in summer. There are people pulling them out and doing the plastering and just going with the refrigerator type.
Is there any value in using an air conditioner to do a ducted system, heating and cooling
Sure.
with an air conditioner
Yeah,
in
all
the
those
roof?
things exist. So basically, we've mostly been just talking about a simple split system, which is 1 unit inside, 1 unit outside. So you're indoor and you're outdoor unit. But another configuration is what they call multi-head. So you might get 1 big unit outside, but it's able to communicate using just the small refrigerant lines with a number of inside units. So that's called multi-head, and I got quotes for those. That's still not ducted, but yeah, then there are the ducted type systems as well that you might want to go with, because there you don't really see a lot of the equipment inside. If you really don't want to see that thing on the wall, then you might be thinking about a ducted system. And what I would say there is just get good ducts. All ducts are not created equally, so get ducts that are good to begin with in terms of their structural strength and their insulated and how well insulated they are. And also make sure that you can inspect them and protect them. So like the things under the house are pretty hard to protect from the foxes or whatever might want to go under there. In the attic space, it might not be so bad if you're ducting through the ceiling. But then the other thing is just keep in mind that if you're ducting through the ceiling, that can really compromise your insulation, etc. up there. So just think all these things through as to the unintended consequences that might occur with ducting.
You can get covers that you can put over the vents in summer. I don't know how good they are.
Yeah, everything's, oh, yeah, they'd be pretty good.
They're
Yeah.
diffusers, so you can adjust the damping
Yeah, they'd be pretty good.
No, it's actually a plastic cover that you
Yeah.
and
stick
they're
over the vent.
diffusers.
Oh, but actually, no, you wouldn't, if you're using it for a heater and a cooler, you'd never bother to, because you'll be.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, so just make sure you can, the ducts are
You need
good, you
to-
can inspect them and you can defend them.
That's where you need the closing ducts, but there don't seem to be many vent covers that open and close that way.
Any more questions?
Sure.